My group was looking for a new game, and somebody found a Judge Dredd tabletop RPG book. The GM read the book and was super excited. He said that the character creation was a mini adventure itself, as we played as cadets training to be judges, and the choices you made over the course of in-game years determined what your final character would play like. The GM sets the tone, with a comically grimdark description of the setting, very appropriate for Judge Dredd. We're playing as first-year cadets, and the GM tells us to roll for athletics. We all do so. The GM then reads off from a large table depending on what you rolled. High rolls meant you passed with flying colors and got boons. Low rolls and you squeaked by, getting some character flaws. Next was roll academia, roll medical, roll psi powers. There were 8 total random rolls we made, and a massive list of results for each one. By the end of it, everyone started having a mix of random stats, boons, and flaws. But no one made a single choice so far in character creation. GM says it's time for year 2. Roll athletics, roll academia, roll medical, etc. Then we go to year 3, and here's where things get stupid. One player rolls so poorly on one of the rolls that they straight up died. They died mid-character creation. The GM begins searching in the book what to do when a character dies during character creation. Turns out, that player has to redo his entire character from scratch, until he catches up with the rest of us. Year 4, and 2 more players die right before graduation. They have to undergo the entire character creation process from the start. Over 3 hours of the most gruesome character creation process, but we can finally pick classes. Player 1, I want to play a psi judge. GM, your psi stat is too low. You can't play a psi judge. Player 2, I want to play a techie. GM, your int stat is too low. You can't play a techie. Player 3, I want to play an admin. GM, your charisma stat is too low. You can't play an admin. Party, well, what classes can we play? GM, you can all play as street judges, which are the default class. You're also locked into that class. Impatient, we begrudgingly finished our sheet and got into the GM book's first official mission. We start with a shootout. Criminal gets a lucky crit on a player, instantly killing them. We finish the mission and ask the GM what happens to the player. The GM flips through the book and wearily says, he has to make a new character from scratch. To summarize, 1. Character creation is extremely time-consuming. 2. You don't get to choose your own stats. 3. You get assigned random bonuses and penalties. 4. Your class choices are extremely limited to your random stats. 5. You can die during character creation. 6. Anytime you die, you go through the character creation process again. Never again. I mean, at least it's accurate to the source material. My name is Jacob Crowe, and welcome to the Crow's Perch. Today on the Crow's Perch, we dive into a story about a DM with stars in his eyes, filled with the hopes of turning his game into a live stream, all in pursuit of becoming the next Critical Role. Critical Role, well, they need no introduction. You know what Critical Role is. The largest D&D stream and now a full-fledged company in its own right, with a slew of upcoming properties related to them under their belt, all based on their now 3 large-scale campaigns, DM'd by Matt Mercer. Love 'em or hate 'em, every D&D streamer wants to be 'em. But as this DM will soon find out, the success of Matt Mercer and his group of merry voice actors is not something so easily replicated. So, without further ado, let's ask our fellow burbs how do they want to do this, as we gather up a murder and dive right into this story. The characters are, not their actual names of course, Joey, a man filled with too much confidence. Vanessa, his fiancée. Martin, his arch-nemesis. The streaming crew, his minions. The local game store owner. the skeptic, and yours truly. Back in my college days, I used to frequent the local game store in my city to play Magic. One day, the owner approached me and asked if I was interested in playing a D&D homebrew mini-campaign meant for beginners. I agreed. The DM was a guy named Joey. At this point, I had only played 3 sessions of Lost Mine of Phandelver, so there was a session 0 for character creation. I decided to play a Wood Elf Druid. We played session 1 a week later, and it was alright, even though I thought it was kinda weird that he did all the narration, while his fiancée literally did everything else. But hey, to each their own, I guess. I couldn't make it to session 2 since I was busy with a few term papers and work, so I approached Joey about this. He assured me that Vanessa and her best friend would run the same campaign again next week. They also assured me that they were going to do D&D now every Wednesday. So the next Wednesday rolled around, no sight of Vanessa, her friend, or Joey for that matter. So I asked the owner if they canceled. He just shrugged. I'm telling this story because it's a red flag for later. I got really bummed out by that, since I had a ton of fun playing D&D. So when my next paycheck rolled around, I decided to start DMing myself. I DM'd every Wednesday at the local game store until the pandemic hit. I met a lot of really cool people through that, with whom I am still friends to this day, even after I moved across the country. Cut to a few months later, Joey started hanging out at the store again. He mostly did that on Wednesdays before my campaign. One day in summer, he announced that he was going to run a one-shot. The players were meant to be determined by chance. Weirdly enough, 4 out of the 6 player spots were occupied with Joey's friends, and the other was the local game store owner's daughter for some reason. It was supposed to be with pre-written characters that were meant to be Disney princesses. As the store DM, I was invited to play, but I respectfully declined, since I didn't get along with a few of Joey's friends. I didn't hate them, but they were the kind of people I didn't want to be at the same table with. One of them was Martin. Martin was a bit of a power gamer, and always had a patronizing tone when speaking to you. Imagine the tone some people take when they explain something to a child. After the one-shot, which was definitely politically relevant because it had jokes about the MacGuffins being called Epstein and Weinstein. Don't forget Bobby Kotick's name is still in the Black Book. The owner's daughter approached Joey and said, "Well, that was fun. You should start streaming D&D." Joey and Vanessa were completely hooked on the idea. Joey wanted it to be, you guessed it, the next Critical Role. So they asked the owner if they could use the store for streaming, to which he agreed, if they managed to get a test stream going. The owner got burned badly on something similar before, which led to him basically throwing away $3,000. The problem with Joey is that he is not a great DM. I had a few conversations with him about his D&D philosophy, which is basically, if you have players that act like crap, that means you haven't given them enough loot. So next time you have shitty players at your table, enable them. But the worst part was his world building. I will call his setting Joey's World. The actual name is the name of a famous European comic series, but 1 letter is changed. Nothing from this setting was original in any sort of way. Usually I have no problem with that, but please bear with me. He stole a bunch of stuff from 5e books, including names. He has a country named Tetheria, for example, which is literally Beauclair from The Witcher 3. There was more, like the Dune Desert and the Ice Mountains. Also, he combined some of the Eberron and Forgotten Realms into one for his creation myth. Instead of Eberron and Khyber, it was Tiamat and Bahamut. He also thought it was brilliant that he put Phandalin in his world as the starting town. So, Joey's world was basically as original as Sonichu. Vanessa and Joey then actually wrote a proof of concept, and a business plan rolled into one. If you have a business, you know that this is a complicated thing. You have to write stuff like business expenses and such. Something like this would take you about 30 to 40 pages, I guess. According to the owner, it was written on 3 pages of a school notebook. By the way, they refused to show this to anyone but the store owner. So according to the owner, the business plan had nothing about income or expenses on it, just short, mid, and long-term goals for the project. So it was basically, step 1, start streaming. Step 2, Step 3, profit. Their concept was also interesting. They wanted to start something called a communal art project. So Joey wanted a bunch of minions who did literally all of his work. I know Critical Role has people working behind the scenes, but they get paid. So Joey just wanted to pay people in exposure. Mind you, the people in there were writers, translators, DMs, me included, and artists. All of the people were meant to do Joey's work, while Joey gets to sit his ass down every Friday and just play the game and take credit for other people's work. And everything that was created in the project would belong to Joey. This is where the trouble starts. First of all, Joey gets it in his head that he wants everything that goes on in the store to be under his control. Yes, everything. We had a few dudes who had their own YouTube to review the latest Warhammer stuff. They didn't even know about their luck. They were supposed to be part of his network now. He wanted to own literally any piece of internet media that would be produced in the store. During all of this, Joey and Vanessa also started doing what they called a stream preparation campaign, which was basically meant as a prequel for the entire campaign. It featured an act of magical terrorism enacted by a group only consisting of Dragonborn. His idea was to portray a society of persecution and discrimination. Considering his DM style, this could have been insanely risky. They also gave each of the players strict character creation rules to prevent weird furry stuff, since this is a serious campaign that deals with serious topics. Also, Vanessa was going to be one of the players in the stream campaign. He told me how proud he was of her character concept, a half ASMR, half tiefling assassin rogue. For him, it was an incredibly deep character concept, since it was dualistic. My Wednesdays of local game store DMing were all supposed to be homebrewed and take place in Joey's world. Because once we start streaming, I, as the store's DM, will be the public face of the streaming campaign. Dude legitimately thought that after we started streaming, people would go crazy and do something like Beatles Mania. He also wanted me to be his co-author, which I declined, since I was still very busy with college. And I was glad that I noped out of there early. Mind you, at this point, we didn't have any of the necessary equipment to start streaming. That means no lighting, no sound, and more important, no cameras. The store also had a Discord where the Joey's World project was discussed. Joey started posting work requests on it, requesting that the team of writers change the names of all of the places in his setting. Right after that was done, he deleted everything that might hint at someone else being involved in the name creation. That's when they started seeing the first red flags. Martin was the first one to confront him about that. Joey just said, "Yeah, I deleted it because that work step is done. I didn't want anyone to steal my setting before I can publish it in a book." And then the bickering started. The room the owner set aside for the stream was to be cleared out of old furniture. I helped anyway, since again, the owner is a good friend of mine. Joey said that he was going to be there with bells on. The only other person that showed up was Martin. Martin, understandably, was really pissed after that. I don't know all the details since I mostly prefer to stay out of drama. At the end of 2019, Joey put the entire campaign on ice because of creative differences. Early 2020, Martin dropped out. Joey used this as an excuse to save face and also cancel the entire project. He claimed that Martin was trying to sabotage the project because he didn't get to be a player on the stream. My theory: Joey must have realized that equipment is really expensive, and preparing something like this takes a lot of time, which he didn't have, since he also had to study for his final college exams. But he managed to throw Martin under the bus, blaming the failure of the entire project on him alone. Martin might not be the nicest guy, but he didn't deserve that. This failed attempt at streaming destroyed a lot of friendships at the store and turned Joey into a laughingstock. Joey contacted me a few months after, also trying to pawn off his old group on me, with whom he also got into a fight. He lovingly referred to them as a bunch of min-maxers. I am just glad that my Wednesday group survived. Here's the rub. If you start streaming in the hopes of becoming famous, don't even start. Look at who's famous on Twitch. Is it the most clout-sharky goblin imaginable? Is it people who, at the very least on the surface, are genuine or entertaining? If you think it's the former, you need to start paying attention. If you really care about streaming your game, then care about the game, unlike Joey here. Have fun with it. Have fun with your chat. Build a community, no matter how small, and just be yourselves. I won't say it's the same as playing at home, because it isn't, but it's a really fun experience that I would recommend at least trying, but not if your only goal is to attempt to eclipse the largest streamer on the platform from nothing. It's shallow and wishful thinking that will nab you the opposite result. A game ending in drama, tears, and maybe some dickhead trying to pay you an exposure. Anyway, those are today's stories, and these are my thoughts, and I would like to hear what you guys have to say about today's stories in the comments down below. This week's Art of the Week is going to be a little different. Last week I mentioned about our art competition, featuring the Crowe doing the Fortnite default dance. And today, we have our winner. Drumroll please. And the winner of our first art event is...
The dust settles on the battlefield, finally giving way to the dozens of goblin corpses motionless on the ground. You've defeated the goblin army, but at what cost?
Victory Royale! Cosmosis. I am continuously humbled and surprised, and sometimes concerned, by the amazing art that pops up here. You're all winners in my eyes, and so I wanted to show you the rest of the pieces that were worked on. From Queen Civ, Vincent, Vicis, Mordecai95, and Mayu on the Crow's Perch Discord. I was incredibly surprised, especially by the ones who went out of their way to animate the whole thing. And I'm looking forward to the next art event. I have a couple of ideas, and I'll leave it up to a community post poll so that you guys can decide which one we're going to go with. I'd also like to thank the Crow's Perch patrons.
And since I didn't use this voice for the Art of the Week this week, I shall use it for my patrons. The first of which is our burb, Reuven Gritters. But above our burbs are our counts of quills, like Gibber-Woods, King Druzil, Christian Pipp, Cosmosis, Cookie Spooks, Rikus, Mexican, Haley Thompson, Zero Fang, and Netscape Navigator.
But how can we talk about the Counts of Quills without mentioning the Barons of Beaks? Like Misfit, Wormy, WhoAmIAgain, Matthew Mulqueeny, Dan of the Drake, McYeetly, and Anja.
But we can't end the video without talking about the Dukes of Feathers, like Henna, General Constantine Chase, Happy Rex, Stevie, Doc Salty 96, and Acroth.
It was either this or I did Stallone's yelling voice, and I'm just not going to do that. At least not while I'm sick. Thank you for tuning in for today's stories, and I'll see you next time. As the crow flies.